Welcome to the Voice of Women podcast with the purpose to empower women and disrupt the gender gap. I am your host, Priya Kandula. Come to the Voice of Women podcast with an intention to amplify women's voices. I am your host, Priya Kandula, and today's topic is Mentorship Matters. And with me is Semonie Kong, Contingent Workforce Manager at Atlassian. With over a decade of global experience and certifications such as the CCWP and PMP, Semonie is very passionate about optimizing business solutions and project execution. She is also the co-chair of Women of Work Teens by Club BMSA. I'm super excited to be in conversation with Semonie Kong on the topic power of mentorship. Semonie, I have to start off by say it again. I love our backgrounds. I think we match. And I'm so glad. It's an honor and a privilege for you to be here. I think I saw you a year ago, the first time at CWS event. And I'm so glad that today, less than a year, I can call you my friend. So thank you so much. You're so friendly and warm as a person. And thank you for agreeing to do this podcast with me.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. Actually, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I want to start off by asking just your journey into the contingent workforce space and, what got you to be where you are.
Well, my story is actually funny. So I feel like I've done so many different things that I sometimes forget because it's not all on my resume. But actually, I come from, I was in the education field, financially for a university that's local here to Orlando. And I met a neighbor of my brother's actually that was in the staffing industry for years. And, got to talking to her a little bit about what she was doing. And they had a need for a account manager at the company. And I was like, why not? I was ready for a change. I submitted my resume. I must say that was like the most lengthy process I went through to get in a job. I had like 5 interviews and a presentation before I got the job. So I definitely didn't get it because I knew her. I had to work for it. So that's kind of how I got in the space working for the first MSP. And I did that for 7 years.
Wow. Awesome. Love that. Love that. 5 interviews, huh? That's crazy.
I thought so. I was like, I don't know what else they want from me. Do they want some blood? Because it was like, as an account manager, program manager, you have to be able to present. So the last thing was a presentation on whatever topic you wanted it to be on. And in my past life, I don't know if I like it, but I end up doing it is planning events. So I did my presentation on just the whole event planning process. I got the job. I guess I did well. And for me, it was like, it was new. I mean, I didn't go to college thinking I wanted to be in this industry. I don't think any of us did, right?
Yes.
I was heads down for a good, like the first few months, just like trying to learn everything, understand the space. To this day, I mean, I'm on the buyer side now, but I think just trying to explain what it is that we do to like your family and your friends, it's like, they have no clue. So I'm like, it's just staffing. It's just
I
staffing.
totally get that. It's been 20 years into this industry and my dad still doesn't understand what I do. So yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that journey. But just in your journey in the last 10 years and over 10 years, specifically into the contingent workforce space, right? Have you faced any unique challenges just being as a woman in a leadership role?
For sure. And sometimes what's surprising? Sometimes the challenges are not just coming from the opposite sex. It could be from the same, right? And I think in that first role that I mentioned, working for the MSP, it was my boss's boss. Like, she was very like critical and I would say not patient. And at times placed obstacles that made that journey very challenging, but I'm always up for a challenge. You're not gonna hurt me that easy. So I didn't like fall to whatever it is that she was trying to do. I just kept my heads down, learned what I needed to do, and I succeeded in my role. I remember at one point there was some change in leadership where she was no longer my boss's boss, and they brought in someone else, which was her friend. And I remember when her friend sat in on one of my quarterly business review with one of my accounts, Of course, they all loved me. I mean, I was great at what I did. It was like,
Everybody loves you.
oh, I don't know about that part, but I remember at the end of it that I got a call from now my boss's boss, which was now her friend, like, and she was like, "Oh my God, like that was so good." And I just like I stopped, and it was almost like that backhanded compliment kind of thing. It's like, well, what did you expect? But I think she came into it with whatever expectations she may have had from her friend who didn't really try to get to know me and really see what I was able to do.
No, I love that. And I think you brought up a really important point. So when we talk about the challenges that we face, women in leadership roles, we always have that mindset that it's always coming from the opposite sex. It is sometimes from the same sex too. It's women and men, we face challenges from. So thank you so much for clarifying that, and also, being vocal about it, right?
Yeah, the reasons could also be like an ageism thing, right? That sometimes they're threatened because here comes what appeared to be like the younger new thing. So instead of them really like taking you up, understanding that like this person is new to this industry, and I was like a sponge, just wanting to soak it all up, and really it would have been a great opportunity for her to be a mentor and really provide guidance. And instead, it was like you just try to make my life difficult and just like different little like what she thought were subtle ways.
Right.
But I'm here and I'm the better of it, so it's all good.
Right. That's, yeah. I think challenges are the ones, like stepping stones for us. So sometimes it's good to have that hard boss, I guess. But it's also good to have mentors, like you just mentioned, especially I think women, and, when it comes to leadership roles, we have so few out there, we can look up to. Have there been any mentors in your journey, have helped you and really been like a linchpin for you, in your years where you are?
Yeah, for sure. I think at that same company, my immediate boss also changed. Like there was a lot of change. I never had like a boss, and I think that's also part of the gap, right? I never had a boss like long enough to really even help from that perspective. But then I had a female boss, and it's funny because we had so much in common. And I think sometimes like a mentor, you don't even realize that that's what's happening, because it might not be in the way, the traditional sense of it, if you will. And I think something that, she came in and she realized like what I was capable of and just looked out for me in different ways, provided guidance and ensured that she was an advocate of mine and that I got what I deserved. So that was one time. And I think I've had bosses, another one that I'm now friends with, where it's organic. Like you don't even realize they're playing that mentorship role, but they are, because she's someone I can call. I can talk about, like, just vent, to talk about what's going on. And sometimes she's talking me off the ledge because I need to be talked down. And say, okay, well, here's how you're gonna go into this conversation, take the emotions out of it, and just be a matter of fact with what you need to get across. So yeah, I've been fortunate in that regard. I don't even think I realized that that's exactly what that relationship maybe have evolved into.
Love it. What were there any specific qualities that you're looking for? It was just organic.
It's funny because I think everyone takes the whole mentorship relationship differently, right? And I think it needs to be organic. It needs to be natural. You need to look for qualities in the person that's going to be your mentor, that they have to be an active listener. Are they listening to you? They're allowing you to voice whatever you're going through, not always playing the role as like Mr. or Mrs. Fix It, right? Because that's not really what the mentor is for, in my opinion. They're there to really listen to you, provide feedback. And I think for me, there has to be a level of mutual respect in that relationship. I want someone that's a good communicator, knowledgeable and open. I think for me, those are the qualities that I seek out in a mentor, or for myself when I'm trying to be a mentor for others.
I love that. I love the quote which says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So I think it's pretty much what you're saying, right? I think when we are in that space of, accepting feedback from somebody, and it's more an organic relationship that builds over time.
Exactly. And the mentor-mentee relationship is not supposed to be someone that's just going to be a pushover. That's not the role. Like I think for me, feedback is how you provide it, right? It needs to be constructive. There needs to be like a lesson in there or something that you're supposed to take away from it. And I think that's an important quality. If it's not just a yes person, if that's what you're looking for, I don't really know how much you're going to gain from that.
All right. So just for young women out there who are, trying to be, leaders, trying to get into leadership roles, how do you think they can go about seeking mentors?
I think we touched on this already, right? It needs to be organic. Sometimes the mentor is already around you. It's in your network. Maybe take an inventory of your network, see who's in the network that's already kind of doing some of the things that you want to do. Do your research on them. Feel it out. I don't know that, like, I think I was reading the book, I think it's Lean In, but I don't want to quote the wrong book, where I think she was talking about how she was looking for a mentor, like people just come up to you randomly, like you don't even know them. I don't necessarily think that's the best approach. I think it needs to be someone that you have a rapport with, or at least try to build one first. So that's why my advice would be to like inventory your network first and kind of see what that person is doing, get to know them. Maybe when you go to some of these like social events, get to talking to them, maybe not even about what you're looking for mentorship on, just to get to know them as a person to see if they're going to be a good fit for you.
I love that. I'm always looking for mentors too, like, to help me grow and learn. And I think, like you said, there's not always one person. I think it's, you sometimes, you look back and you're like, oh my God, there was some kind of mentorship relationship there. Have you ever served as a mentor, and how does, how do you like being a mentor to somebody?
That's funny because I think the recent success story is I'm part of this other group where they had mentorship sessions like kind of set up, and I got on this call and I was just genuinely just talking with the person, not even realizing that I was actually serving as a mentor. And for me, I just try to, again, just be open, like, because if you're the mentor and you have that wall up and you're not willing to like lend of yourself, it's not going to be a good relationship. So I try to like build that rapport, really listen to what it is that the person is trying to get from the relationship. I try to be supportive. And I think one thing I did in that particular situation was, the mentee was looking for someone that had experience in a different line of business than I have. So right away, I thought of someone else. I'm like, you know what? That's really not my area, but I can happily, like, I can connect you with this other person that can help you with that part of what you're doing. And I think, and that to me was just being honest, right? And that's part of being a mentor. You have to be honest. Maybe you're not the right fit for everything they need, but maybe you can be for a piece of it. So I think there was still some value added with that relationship.
Right. And do you think organizations can, provide a space or anything from their end, to ensure that, women in leadership roles can get these mentorships? Because see, I see that, most of the times I think people are so shy or scared, to go and approach somebody and say, not exactly the terms that can you be my mentor, but I'm facing this challenge, do you have time to help me out, kind of a thing, right? So do you think organizations can do something that they provide that space for people to go and ask for help or mentorship?
I think they totally can, and I think they should. I think it should almost be a part of like your review, right? I think, and the mentor doesn't have to be the same sex, right? I think we touched on that before. I think they can put something formal in place where every time you have a new hire, you pair them with someone that's either have been through something similar in the company where they can guide them a little bit. And because sometimes you start with a new company and you don't even know where you want to grow within that company, especially now where a lot of businesses are remote. So folks are getting onboarded remotely. So I think having like a mentor or a senior person, if they could partner you with that person and really ensuring that there's formal check-ins so it doesn't fall off. Like we have something similar at the company that I am at now, but it's more like a buddy system. It's not a formal mentorship program. So I think what I would want to see is like something more formal where maybe it's tied to your review, like did you have this mentorship thing, and like there should be checkpoints. And maybe the person that you originally get partnered with is not a good fit, and then you reevaluate like every 3 months. Like it could constantly change because that person can help you to navigate the company because they've already been there, the culture, maybe provide some guidance as to like, the next step. If the job you're in, there's no like career path like within that job, that there's another role there that they could provide guidance because they've been there. So
Right.
I think that's how companies could definitely help with that.
No, I really liked where you said, like, maybe they change the person every 3 months, because
Yeah,
also different people can provide different kinds of mentorship, right? So you're
exactly.
getting more variety in mentorship, if I may say. So I think that's great.
And real quick, and the thing is, I think like finding a mentor is like finding a therapist. So, I mean, really, right? Not that they're doing the same role, but it's not one size fit all. So
All right.
that's why I said you have to be open and try to work on building that rapport, because you might realize, you know what, this person could be a good ally, but
Right.
they're not really like the mentor that
Right.
that I'm looking for. So that's
Right.
something to keep in mind. Like everyone's not going to be a mentor. Doesn't mean you still can't have them in your circle. Just understand what role they may play.
Right. And you said circle. That was the next thing I was going to touch on, right? So just having a support network. So mentor is somebody obviously, trying to coach you, kind of a relationship. But what about, just having a support network for women? Do you think that's important in a professional career?
Oh, it absolutely is. And I think like, having moved to the buyer side, I feel like I have my circle, like, and it's again, it's happened like really organically. Like it's someone who you're vibing with, someone that's there that like want good stuff for you. Cause I'm a firm believer, if something is meant for me, it's meant for me. We don't need to be, and women, sometimes we get caught up being competitive. There's no need for that. Let's just be here to uplift each other. Like there's room at the table for all of us. So I have managed to find, I think, a really good like circle of women that I can call on. Should I need an opinion on this? Like, how do you navigate this? Or just to listen to me, because you know, we all have our moments. And
Right. Yeah.
sometimes we need, maybe they have already experienced that and they could share, well, here's how I would approach this. Because again, a lot of times, we might have that emotions in it and they've already been through it. So now they're rational and they could provide that guidance or just support to know you're not alone.
Right. And Simone, one other question. So especially for women who are just starting their career, or, trying to climb up the career ladder, right? I think they're kind of confused on, can I ask somebody, how, to negotiate for my salary, or they don't know the questions that they can ask or cannot ask. Do you think you have a list of maybe 2 or 3 things where you want to tell people who are watching this and say that, it is okay to ask your mentor or anybody in your supporting network, these questions, on maybe one thing I know that comes up is obviously negotiations, but also if there is, I think, a tough colleague, how to, manage them and things like that, right? So do you have anything that, pointers where, people can go and it's okay to talk to people and share things like that?
Well, I think you have to treat your professional circle the same way you treat your personal circle, right? And I think if there's no trust amongst those professional colleagues, then like people are not going to want to open up to them. So I think you have to work on that relationship and build a trust and understand that this person has your best interest at hand. Then you're going to feel comfortable going to them to say, hey, I just had a really bad day at work today, or this happened to me at work. Like, does this what do you think about this? Like, am I misreading this? Am I overreacting because I'm so close to it? Like, what are your thoughts? But honestly, for someone to do that, you have to have a rapport and know that you have trust in that relationship, or you're not going to open up. So I think you have to work on the trust. And once you feel like you can trust that person, then in my mind, you should be able to take anything to them. And then they'll provide, if they really care about you, they're going to give you good advice or good direction, right? And sometimes, you know what, when you're on the other end, sometimes people just want to vent. You just need to listen. You know what I mean? Don't always
Yeah.
try to be Mrs. or Mr. Fix It,
Correct.
is what I would say. But work on the trust.
On the trust. So I think, yes, building that support network, sometimes it's organic, it's quick. Sometimes I know it's slow, it's going to take time, but I think, it's just being aware and conscious and trying to, get that network. But I love that. I'm just quickly going to summarize, what you said, because there were such beautiful nuggets out there. I think the first thing that you said was, it's not just the opposite sex, but, sometimes it's also the same sex where, we have challenges, that come up. More often than not, I've seen that, it is the same sex. And then the second, I love where you said that the mentorship has to be organic. And sometimes you don't even realize that, that person was your mentor until you look back on your journey. And I think that is so true. And the third is about the network of trust, the group of people that, we have to collect along the way. Some of us are lucky that, we find them easily. Some are not. I think, they just have to keep trial and error, I guess.
Yeah, and it's funny because even like I feel like you and I, right? Like we interacted a couple of times at conferences, and like I think if you weren't open to it or myself, wasn't open to it, we would have missed out on like, this great relationship. But I think you have to be open to it, and both parties have to be open to it.
Correct.
Is what I would say.
Totally agree. One last piece of advice for just women who are trying to be in leadership, roles, either from your experience or something which, has been like, this really worked out for me kind of an experience.
So my advice is, and I have it on a bracelet, which I don't have on right now, is to give yourself some grace. Like being a leader is not easy, especially a woman in leadership. And I feel like from fresh out of college, and I was in a different industry, like I experienced that. And I think what I realize now, looking back, and that was quite some time ago, although is that I didn't give myself grace. I was hard on myself because I didn't know how to navigate, some of the challenges that was happening to me. So I think my advice would just be kind to yourself, give yourself some grace, seek out that support system, seek out other women that will be there to build you up and remind you just how great you are. And I think everything will work out.
That is just such beautiful advice. We are hard on ourselves, especially I think we as women, because we're trying to prove a lot more. It's so important to give ourselves grace. And I know I love your intent bracelet. I know I keep looking at it. So I know you live by what you say. I love that. I really, really appreciate the time that you've given me and just shared all these beautiful things. I know it's going to help a lot of women out there watching our podcast. Thank you so much for your time, Semonie.
Thank you so much. This was great. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
I am truly grateful to you for taking the time to listen, learn, and share today. Please do share it with your friends and family if you got any value from it. Stay tuned for more stories, insights, and tools to empower each other. Let's break the glass ceiling together.